In this video, we will be continuing our search and destroy map making adventure for Pavlov VR. Today, we are going to be looking at art. Now, of course, you could open up Blender and start modeling and making assets from scratch. That requires a lot more talent, skill, and time than I certainly have, and I'm sure more than most people have as well. Thankfully, Unreal Engine has an immense marketplace of asset packs, including a very comprehensive free category that you don't have to pay any money at all, and you can just get all this stuff for free. If you are on PC VR, the factory environment collection in particular is absolutely massive. There are so many things in here for all sorts of different maps that you could make. This is definitely a good one to check out. Obviously, this won't run on Quest. If you're on Quest, you're going to need to look for something more low poly. There's the Assetville Town, which would be fine for Quest, or Village would also be all right. The Unreal Engine also has monthly free assets that become available, I think, the first Tuesday of every month. So you can just open up the marketplace and click add to cart and get all of these for free each month. And next month will be a new list. And there's normally some good stuff in here. Like here's a cool train station, or if you're on Quest, a low poly Asia environment. So always add everything that is free for the month to your cart and snag it on your account. Even if you don't think you'll need it now, maybe in the future you'll want it. So that's something always good to get. For our S&D map making adventure, we are going to be making a map for Quest, and using low poly assets makes life a lot easier. I'm not going to be using this asset pack. I'm going to be using the Cinti Store military pack. Now, low poly is kind of a divisive art style. Some people don't mind it, some people love it, and others absolutely despise it. For Quest, you are severely limited in terms of triangle count, in terms of texture sizes, and personally, I think that something on the right here looks better than on the left here. The left is trying to go for something more realistic, but you're still limited in triangle count. And if you just don't even try to be something you can't do and you go full stylized, I think that the end result can look a lot better. So this is the asset pack that we're going to be using for our map. It is expensive, but Cinti's makes a lot of good stuff, and you'll see a lot of their content is already in Pavlov. You might recognize the demo maps from popular TTT maps where people just buy the asset pack or get it through some other means and just upload the demo map with little changes. And that's how a lot of lazy map makers make maps, is just using demo maps in asset packs. So where we are with the project, the map we're making, we already have a level design. Episode 1, we finished the block out. We are going to do a quick and dirty art pass on the map. It makes getting feedback a lot easier when the map has a little bit of art and it's not just cubes in a block out. So we're going to do a quick art pass, and then we are going to get some initial feedback and go from there. And we're just going to be going on a loop, getting feedback and making design improvements, working on art, and then getting more feedbacks and changing it and going back and forth until we're happy with the layout and the map is competitively viable. And then we'll go through and do a whole bunch of optimizations and lighting and all that. But this episode, we're just going to be looking at design improvements and visuals. So the first blockout was done just with UE4 geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this out for meshes from our asset pack. And it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to serve the same purpose as the blockout, just kind of getting an idea of the art style. All right, so we have our initial feedback and we've made changes to the map. Let's talk about what's changed and go on a little bit of a tour. The key points of feedback that we received was that the B site and the A site were too close together. The actual plant site was right off of mid, and it made mid quite powerful where you could see directly onto site. And so this version, we have moved B over. We have increased the distance between A and B. This has the potential to cause too long of rotates, meaning if the bomb is planted on B, the people on A take too long to get to that site. But the distances we have here seem reasonable that it won't be particularly long. We have done a art pass, dropping in assets from the asset pack. You can see we have a lot of Middle Eastern buildings now, trying to break it up so it's not so maze-like. There are buildings that have a lot of verticality to them that provide a reference point to players throughout the map. So no matter where you're standing in the map, you should be able to see the air traffic control tower or the temple and get an idea of where you are in the map immediately just by looking up. This is something that's good to include in your map just visually when you get into doing art design, so that players don't get lost and there's an immediate reference point or two that players can use to get an idea of where they are. We have changed the height of this mid platform. Before, this was raised quite a bit, and it provided a head peak. So T's could fight just exposing their head, and CT could be over here and have to expose their entire body, and that provided an unbalanced engagement. So we have lowered the platform in mid so that you can't head peek it. If you want to fight the guy in mid, you're going to have to peek here or come over and peek off of the cover in mid here. Additional changes: before, there were 2 lanes here, and this second lane didn't serve a purpose. There was no reason for anybody to go this way. Everyone would always go this way to sight. So simplification is always good for map making. That route has been removed. Now there's one route to be, and at this sort of roundabout area, there is a curved cover. Now, placing, like this asset pack has the ladder built into this tower, and that's not something that I really want to go into Blender and remove. That's kind of a hassle. But if I didn't have this box here, people would think that you could climb the ladder, and placing some sort of obvious prop in front of all ladders that you don't want to be climbable means that it's straightforward and nobody's going to be able to expect to go up this and then be disappointed. In addition, we have changed the B connector by expanding B over and increasing the distance from A and B. We now have an actual connector. Before, it was pretty much a straight route. There wasn't much of a connector at all. There is a zigzag here because you don't want long sight lines. Typically, a variety of engagement distances is good to include on a map. We already have lots of long engagement distances mid. We have some long engagement distances at A, and even at B we have a little bit of distance here. We're at the point in the map that we want to start decreasing engagement distances more than adding additional long engagement distances. So that's why this B connector is a zigzag, and if you'll notice, it's done in such a way that you can't see through it. If this zigzag was moved a little bit, there would still be a sight line to mid, which we want to avoid. So whenever you do a sort of zigzag connector, always check the sight line along those cheeky angles so that it actually is breaking up the sight line and not providing unfun, like peaky gameplay where you can see down a crack into mid. The placement of the B bomb site has also been purposeful to block the cheeky angle into CT spawn, so you can't see all the way from here to here. That pillar blocks that sight line. Like I was saying about long distances, we want to start to cut back and add more cover rather than add long engagement distances. Personally, I think that fighting at distance is not particularly fun in VR because it's more difficult and it has longer engagement times, and it can be frustrating not hitting your shots with your shaky hands when somebody's across the map. Over here, the drop down was here. This has been moved back. The reason for this is that if somebody is like CT is watching the long area here, they could completely prevent any T's from getting to this drop down, and it felt like a very weak position. By moving it back a little bit, it gives T's more of a chance to get into A site. Now I am a bit worried about head peaks here. If somebody's standing here, they might have a significant advantage fighting it against T's, as well as here, this might be too strong of an angle fighting against T's. We could expand this out if this becomes a problem. We are starting to add buildings. The entire theme of this map will be sort of a Middle Eastern, kind of Dust 2 vibes, kind of market, war zone, kind of like what sand is now in Pavlov, kind of going for that theme of the map. There is a concern about breaking up the width of connectors. Something like this feels very open, whereas something like this can make you feel claustrophobic. And even though it's the same route getting from spawn to B, changing the width of this will give different vibes and different feelings. It doesn't really impact gameplay that much, but it does impact the aesthetic and feel of a map. If you had entirely wide hallways like this, even if the map was top down relatively small, it would feel large just because of the psychological effect like wide hallways have. By the same token, if everything is narrow, even if it's a huge map, it'll feel very small because the individual connectors compress you. If you want an interesting rabbit hole to go down, look up some civil engineering on the width of roadways and speed limits in different areas, and you'll see that wide roads, people go a lot faster, even if it's in the same area versus like a narrow road. And the same sort of psychological effect can be manipulated by your map. If you want a map that has a lot of open spaces to get some variety, you can shrink the connector width and it'll make the map feel smaller. Or if your map feels too small, just by increasing the width of the hallways, you can make it feel bigger. So this version is ready for another round of gameplay testing, and we will come back and make more changes. The planned changes are to continue importing assets and making this look pretty so it's less of a maze-like structure. Players, I'm sure, are going to get lost and confused in something like this where all the walls look the same. And we'll see what balance changes we're looking for. In particular, I'm interested what people are going to think about this site layout. If I need to add more boxes here to provide more cover, or if the corners and what we have here is sufficient. I'm also going to be paying attention for feedback around head glitches on a site.